Andrea and my case study is focusing on the environmental impacts of major sporting events, and I'm using a specific event, the UK stages of the Tour de France. Major cities across the world are staging an increasing number of major events. And one of the key reasons for this is because of the anticipated economic benefits that come with those type events. However, major events can generate significant environmental impacts. In this case study, I used the UK stages of the Tour de France to examine the environmental impacts of a major event. Now, cycling is often considered to be a healthy activity, and is also a low-polluting form of transport. But how green is cycling when it becomes one of the world's largest annual sporting events? We had a number of specific research questions that we looked at. First of all, who were the visitors at the event? Where did they come from? What were their consumption patterns at the event? What was the environmental impact or the ecological footprint of the event? And what were the key drivers of that ecological footprint? In order to measure the environmental impact of visitors, we used the ecological footprint as a way of measuring the resources that they consumed whilst at the event. We trained up some 30 undergraduate students who undertook face-to-face surveys along key points during the event, which included London, Kent and Canterbury. In order to measure that environmental impact of visitors, we looked at their travel, the way in which they travel, how far they travelled, the types of food and drink that they would have consumed during their stay, and also the types of accommodation that they were using. And we looked in particular at their energy use in those types of accommodation. From the study, we found that the vast majority of visitors actually originated from the UK, some 91% of all visitors at the event. 33% of visitors actually originated from London, which is not surprising given that the majority of the event was in London. In terms of the ecological footprint, the event, the 3-day event, generated a footprint of close to 58,000 global hectares, which in terms of land space, it's about 143 times the size of the Olympic Park in London. This impact is 2.2 times greater had those visitors not attended the event and gone about their day-to-day activities. Now, when we focus in on that ecological footprint result, what we found was that the way in which visitors travelled to the event generated the greatest environmental impact, accounting for 75% of the overall footprint. And this was down to the distances in which they travelled and also their choice of transport. We have used a similar methodology to assess the impact of visitors attending other major sporting events and festivals in the UK, including an FA Cup final and a Rugby Six Nations fixture at Cardiff's Millennium Stadium, and also the Hay Festival. And we've come to similar conclusions, that it's the way in which visitors travel that is generating some of the largest types of environmental impacts from these types of events. And so it is travel, which is what organisers and policy makers need to be focusing on in order to reduce their environmental impacts. And so there are a number of important future research questions for researchers and also event organisers. First of all, what types of transport policies are needed in order to reduce the environmental impact of visitor travel? And secondly, can we actually maximise the economic impact and also minimise the environmental impact?